Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. October 18th, 2017.
The Kuhner Report, presented by Kelly Financial Services. This is the Kuhner Report.
It's official, my friends. All roads now from Russia lead to Hillary. An absolute bombshell revelation that is now literally shaking Washington to its very core. Before I get to that, my friends, I have a column up, WRKO.com. I urge everybody, please, Kuhner Country, read it, pass it on to as many of your friends as possible. Kuhner's Corner, the fall of liberal Hollywood. I get into the massive impact of the Harvey Weinstein scandal, how it's not going to affect just Hollywood, but the American left, the Democratic Party, the media, how this is a neutron bomb in one of the key centers of liberal democratic power. It's a must-read. Please go to WRKO.com and you can click on my column and read it and pass it on. Okay, my friends, the mainstream media is in absolute now panic. I'm talking massive damage control mode. They are desperately trying to suppress this stunning revelation. They can't. I'm telling you, they can't. And this is going not only to destroy the Russia meddling narrative, it is going to now, I think, start landing people, or it definitely should start landing people in jail. So, the Hill newspaper broke a story yesterday. Now, the Hill, I used to read it when I was at the Washington Times for a decade. It is immensely credible. Frankly, one of the most credible publications in the country. The story is extremely well sourced, absolutely nailed down. So the facts here are now pretty much indisputable. Here is now what the Hill reports and now is being picked up by other conservative media outlets. It now it now seems overwhelmingly that Hillary Clinton was in the middle of a massive bribery scheme involving the Russians. Now, you're going to say, Jeff, we already knew that. Believe me, not to this extent, and you're going to be stunned, shocked at the players that are now involved. So, here is the story. The Russian nuclear industry wanted America's uranium. They wanted to purchase a company called Uranium One. That was the company that has 20% of America's uranium reserves. What the FBI had is an informant, a confidential witness that had penetrated the Russian nuclear industry. In other words, they've got an inside man. This inside man, for over 6 years, beginning in 2009 to 2015, extensively documented through secret recordings, email intercepts, documents that he was able to get a hold of or copy, that there was massive bribery, extortion, racketeering, kickbacks involved with the Russian nuclear industry, Uranium One, and here it comes, Hillary and Bill Clinton. In particular, here is what happened. Using yellow envelopes stuffed with cash, literally suitcases laundered with money, stuffed with cash, wire transfers I'm talking millions of dollars, in fact, tens of millions of dollars, from places like Latvia, secret bank accounts, Cyprus, Switzerland. They were able to buy off the entire board of Uranium One. And then, shazam! Just unexpectedly, out of the blue, several months before Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, was supposed to make a decision whether to certify that the Russians now could control 20% of our uranium supply, Guess what? 9 members of Uranium One donated over $145 million to the Clinton Foundation. Not only that, direct payments were made to Bill Clinton. Not even to the foundation, literally directly to Bill Clinton. They just sent him the freaking money. Now, as all of this is going on, this is now the mind bender. We now find out that the person who was overseeing this FBI sting operation was Rod Rosenstein. Yes, the very same Rod Rosenstein. He was then an assistant official in the FBI. The same man who is now the Deputy Attorney General, the number 2 man of justice under Jeff Sessions, who, guess what, authorized the special counsel and the special prosecutor to go after Trump. And you know who else knew about it? In fact, oversaw the FBI investigation? You got it. Then FBI Director Robert Mueller. But it gets even worse. It's now come out that top Obama administration officials also knew, including Eric Holder. And so, even though they knew that Hillary Clinton was in the middle of a massive bribery scheme involving bribes, influence peddling, extortion, racketeering, you name it, across the board, where the Russians now had bought her, bought Bill Clinton, bought off key members of the American government to enable them to purchase 20% of our uranium reserve. They signed off on it. All of them did. And here is how. There is a committee called the CFIUS, okay? It's an interagency committee that is responsible for okaying the sale of, let's say, a strategic American resource like uranium, which is important to nuclear weapons and the development of nuclear weapons. They have to sign off on any major sale to a foreign entity, in this case, the Russians, who owned Uranium One. Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, presided over that board. Eric Holder sat on the board. You know who else sat on the board? Bingo! Robert Mueller and Rod Rosenstein. They also approved the sale of our uranium to the Russians and to Uranium One. Now, they were in on it. They approved it. They turned a blind eye. What Hillary Clinton did, make no mistake about it, is a clear violation of the law. In fact, it is so frankly criminal and illegal, it is disgusting. It is a violation of the Foreign Corruption Practices Act. Rosenstein knew it. Mueller knew it. Eric Holder knew it. They had a legal obligation, not a moral one, a legal obligation to inform Congress that Hillary was involved in and her husband, in a massive bribery scheme where they were pimping out and selling out our uranium and national interests to the Russians. They said nothing. They've got to be fired. They are completely compromised in all of this. They need to be absolutely fired. Rod Rosenstein needs to be fired immediately. Robert Mueller needs to be fired immediately. Hillary Clinton now must be charged for bribery, extortion, racketeering, God knows how much. She needs now to go to prison. Bill Clinton needs to go to prison. And here's the kicker. This very same FBI informant has now admitted through his lawyer, Victoria Tonsing, and I'm going to play her in a couple minutes, that he was explicitly threatened by the Obama administration if he sought to speak out. That he fears for his life, not only from the Russians, from Mother Russia, but that literally he says, I was directly threatened by senior members of the Obama administration telling me, shut your mouth. You blow the whistle on this, you're a dead man. And Mueller and Rosenstein are investigating Trump for collusion with Russia? When all roads from Russia lead to Hillary Clinton? When the only one that was colluding with the Russians, the only one that was taking money from the Russians, the only one that was lining her pockets and selling out this country to the Russians were Hillary and Bill Clinton? Are you freaking kidding me? With the open knowledge and tacit support of Holder, Mueller, and Rod Rosenstein? By the way, Andrew McCabe as well, Comey's number 2, also knew about it and approved the sale of Uranium-1 to the Russians and did nothing. So Comey, I believe, is going to be dragged into this as well. It's now only a matter of time. I want you to listen now to Fox News contributor, lawyer, Greg Jarrett on Sean Hannity last night, saying, we are now looking at the mother of all scandals. Roll it, Brittany.
Well, I accused her of potential racketeering, which is using a business as a corrupt criminal enterprise. In this case, her business was a charity, but it was a dual purpose, it appears, because these FBI documents gathered beginning in 2009 seemed to show that the Russians were funneling tens of millions of dollars to that charity.
You know
and
what I
those
suspect?
are illegal monies, which makes it a criminal enterprise.
So we had Russian operatives in this country. Our department, Eric Holder, knew about it.
Right.
They knew about bribery, kickbacks, extortion, money laundering. But money laundering tells me that here's something I'm going to go out. I wonder if all the money that was donated was washed through Latvia, as they had in one of the reports today, and sent to the Clinton Foundation. I wonder if the money came from Russia.
Could have been. It could have
been, right?
It apparently came from more than a half a dozen sources.
But money did benefit the Bill and Hillary Clinton Foundation. That we know tonight.
Bill Clinton personally was receiving money from the Russian nuclear industry connected to this Uranium-1 deal. And what?
You better believe it, the money came from Russia. Of course it came from Russia and Russian shell companies. So we're finding out that these shell companies used banks in Latvia, in Switzerland, in Cyprus, in some of these offshore islands to wire in money. They also had operatives literally handing bags of cash, envelopes of cash, suitcases of cash to people at Uranium-1 and to people at the Clinton Foundation. Now, this is no longer Peter Schweitzer, the author of the book Clinton Cash, has been now completely 1,000% vindicated. But this story is now a different level for this obvious reason. We now have an FBI informant. We now have the secret audio recordings. We now have the emails. We now have all the documents. It's all there in black and white. It's all there. So listen now to Greg Jarrett say, now that we know Rosenstein deliberately did nothing, Mueller did nothing. In fact, they sanctioned the sale of Uranium-1 on that CFIUS board with Hillary Clinton. They all got to go. Every single one of them should be fired or be forced to resign on the spot. Roll it, Britain.
What really I think is making Congress angry is that Eric Holder, who sits on the committee that approved this deal,
with Hillary, also
Hillary presides over it. They voted unanimously. He knew about this when the vote took place. And guess who else knew about it, who was supervising all of this? Robert Mueller, who was FBI director, and Rod Rosenstein, who was then U.S. attorney. They were supervisors on this investigation.
Wait a minute.
And
how
they
could they
sat on it.
So if they knew that real Russian influence collusion is happening,
right,
and they did nothing, how could they now sit in judgment the way they are in this case? It seems to me they've all got to be cleared.
They've all got to be fired or they have to resign.
Immediately.
I mean, it totally compromises their integrity. I don't see any other way out.
Neither do I. Mr. President, look, we're going to talk a lot about Trump, by the way, today. He's under fire on many fronts. But, Mr. President, it's time to lock her up. And this time now, we've got the FBI informant, we've got the documents, we've got the audio recordings, we've got the emails, we've got everything. Hillary was colluding with the Russians. She was on the take from the Russians. She's a traitor and a criminal. She belongs in jail. Her husband belongs in jail. Eric Holder belongs in jail. And Mueller and Rosenstein, they got a lot to answer for. 617-266-6868 is the number. Let me ask you this. It is now the biggest bribery scheme in American history. Hillary Clinton is now at the center of it. Should Trump move to prosecute and send her to jail? And should he now fire Mueller and Rosenstein? I say yes. What do you say? All of your calls now.
In this case, her business was a charity, but it was a dual purpose, it appears, because these FBI documents gathered beginning in 2009 seem to show that the Russians were funneling tens of millions of dollars to that charity.
You know
and
what
those
I suspect?
are illegal monies, which makes it a criminal enterprise.
1227 here on the great WRKO. Okay. Bombshell investigative reporting. A story first published in the Hill newspaper. The mainstream media desperate to suppress it. They won't be able to do it, trust me. And so notice, this is a classic tactic of the left. I remember my grandfather would tell me this about the communists back in the old country. Everything they accuse their enemies of is what they do themselves. So here they are going on about Russian meddling, Russian collusion, Russia coordination with Russia, Putin. And guess what? Now we find out Hillary and Bill were in the middle of a massive, huge bribery scheme worth over at least $145 million. And the FBI had a secret informant who knew about all of this. And Obama did nothing. Mueller did nothing. Rosenstein did nothing. My friends, she needs to go to jail. The sooner, the better. George in Boston. Go ahead, George.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, George?
Fantastic. There's just a little problem with your timeline. So in 2008 is when she got the 145 million from those members, and she was running for president then. And now, how would she have known she was going to be Secretary of State at that time to pass the Uranium One deal? So
where do you get? I mean, well, let me ask you this.
It's on. You can read it on multiple websites.
Okay, just cite me a source. Where does she get her 145 million?
Go to PolitiFact, and then also Snopes. Both debunk it.
Okay, Snopes. I'll tell you right now. Snopes is a garbage website.
Jeff, Jeff.
No, hold on. I'll cite to you the New York Times. Check out the New York Times. In 2009 is when they got the $145 million. Not in 2008. She was then Secretary of State. In fact, the money that she got, according to the New York Times, I'm not citing Peter Schweitzer's book, I'm citing the New York Times, was literally, hold on, was 2 months before Uranium One was approved to be sold. 2 months. So PolitiFact is wrong. Snopes is wrong. They gave $145 million. Number one. Number two, let me ask you this. What do you think the Russians were getting for their $145 million?
They weren't the Russians. It was members on that board
Uh-huh.
to the Clinton
Which we know now,
Foundation,
which
he was running for president.
Hold on.
And they were
Right.
Foundation.
Right.
All right, Jeff. Yep, there's always a scam.
No. Well, hold on. Is the New York? Whoa. Hold on. Is the New York Times wrong?
What?
Well, hold on. Is the LA? So hold on.
I'm not talking about the news story that came out yesterday. You know what? If there's something to that news story, I agree. Let's investigate.
Okay.
The old story, I do not want to buy.
Right. John Solomon, Hill newspaper, look it up. New York Times, look it up. The Times of London, look it up. The LA Times, look it up. Come on. You guys are desperate, and you know it. Let's take it to Jackie Murphy in the newsroom. Okay, my friends, it now begins. The end of the Russia narrative for the mainstream media. And now all the evidence that the president wants, if he so chooses, to send Hillary and Bill Clinton to where they belong, prison. Okay, bombshell story. I've got both of them in front of me. John Solomon was the one that first broke it in the Hill newspaper. Like I said, you can go up on thehill.com, read it for yourself. It's one of the most credible newspapers literally in the country. The Senate Judiciary Committee is now launching a probe into the Hillary Russia bribery nuclear case. Now they're looking into this. Another one that's now broken the story is Sarah Carter. Here is what Sarah Carter now reveals from her multiple FBI sources. I'm not talking Snoops, and I'm not talking PolitiFact. So I'm not talking about far-left websites who've been shilling for Hillary for years and have been shown repeatedly to lie. I'm talking about serious, credible reporters who work for serious, credible news organizations. Okay? So here is now what Sarah Carter is now reporting. She says that in 2010, the FBI, in court documents, had gathered enough evidence to prove Rosatom, which is the Russian company that bought Uranium One, that they were engaged in a global bribery scheme. This bribery included kickbacks, money laundering, extortion, and racketeering. That they openly sought to co-opt Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation. The deal required approval by something called CFIUS, C-F-I-U-S, an interagency committee, as I said, that reviews transactions regarding a change of control of a U.S. business to a foreign person or entity that may have an impact on U.S. national security. Uranium is key because it's what you need for nuclear weapons and a nuclear arsenal. At the time of the Uranium One deal, Hillary Clinton oversaw CFIUS as Secretary of State. Furthermore, then Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner was on CFIUS. Then Attorney General Eric Holder was on CFIUS. Robert Mueller was on CFIUS. And Rod Rosenstein was on CFIUS. The FBI had gathered substantial evidence that there was massive bribery and kickbacks being involved. In particular, Russian agents, one of them is Vadim Mikerin, who was then a top official with Rosatom. He was living in Maryland, suburban Maryland, which is just outside of D.C. He was the one, and along with others, that were distributing yellow envelopes stuffed with cash, briefcases stuffed with cash. Furthermore, the FBI then found that Russia had multiple shell companies in Cyprus, Latvia, and Switzerland who were wiring tens of millions of dollars, much of it poured into the coffers of the Clinton Foundation. That McCarran was nailed and for violating the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and that now the FBI informants are saying that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, who, by the way, got direct cash, wasn't even go to the foundation. They sent money straight to Bill, that he also was violating, they were both violating the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. The informant, this FBI informant, is the one that is a whistleblower in all this. Listen now to, I got the audio, but I just want to read this. This is straight from Sarah Carter's reportage. Again, I'm not relying on Snoops or PolitiFact or the Huffington Post. I'm talking serious reporters, serious publications, using serious standards of journalism. Victoria Tonsing, who is the lawyer for the FBI informant, the whistleblower, who had been telling the American government all of this for years, said, quote, her client is not only afraid of the Russian people, but he is afraid of the U.S. government because of the threats the Obama administration made against him. Listen now to Victoria Tonsing in an interview with Sarah Carter explain why the FBI informant decided to break his silence and blow the whistle on this massive influence peddling, bribery, corruption scheme. Roll it, Brittany.
Is there anything that you'd like to get across to the American public based on what your knowledge is, what you've learned? What's his reason for doing this now?
Well, it's the same as his reason that he started it. He said, I did this as a patriot. I didn't like what I was being asked to do. And as a patriot, I went to the U.S. government. I thought they were going to be good to me and follow through and do what they were supposed to do. And so his sense of justice is now skewed because he looks at this, all these bribes were going on, and this uranium-1 purchase occurred. And he doesn't understand it. So the same thing that motivated him to come to the Justice Department is the same thing that's motivating him now to say, let's get this right.
She then, I want you to listen to the second cut, because this is also very telling. Go, Brittany.
There was an issue before an agency called CFIUS, Alphabet Soup, but that is the agency that decides whether foreign governments may buy U.S. companies or product. The Russian entity wanted to buy a company that had 20% of the American uranium. It's called Uranium-1 was the name of the company. And that issue was before CFIUS. They were supposed to decide whether there was an okay deal and whether there was any corruption or any kind of problems or national security issues regarding this purchase.
And this was at the same time, correct, or during the same time that your client was already providing information to the FBI?
My client had been providing information for a couple of years before this really got voted on by CFIUS. And here's the rub. High-ranking law enforcement officials in the Obama administration knew that there was corruption in this company.
Bingo. 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 I'm telling you this. Look, this is no longer Peter Schweitzer. This is no longer the New York Times, the LA Times, the Times of London, which had all reported on this story. We're now talking FBI informant. We're talking now about real documents, smoking gun documents, audio tapes, email intercepts. Now, look, what Trump's going to do with this, what Jeff Sessions is going to do with this, I don't know. Okay, that's up to them. But what I can tell you now, absolutely, definitively, there's no getting around this. There's no getting around this. Obama lied. When he went on about how he had a scandal-free presidency, that is such bullcrap. That is such BS, it's not even funny. The question now is, what did Obama know? And when did he know it? The second question is, now that they all knew that there was massive bribery and extortion and racketeering going on, why did Robert Mueller deliberately turn a blind eye? Why did Rod Rosenstein deliberately turn a blind eye? Why did Eric Holder deliberately turn a blind eye? And why is Robert Mueller allegedly not investigating Hillary for her obvious now, there's no denying it, collusion with the Russian government? Remember this. Remember, through all the smokescreen and the lying and the disseminating, who pushed for the reset with Russia? Hillary. Who turned a blind eye to the invasion of Crimea and eastern Ukraine? Hillary. Who allowed Syria to the Russians, to muscle into Syria? Hillary. Who allowed the Russians to help nuke up the Iranians? Hillary. She was bought and paid for. Like a $10 streetwalker, or in this case, $145 million streetwalker. They bought her lock, stock, and barrel. And when they said jump, she and Bubba said, how high? Tim in New Hampshire. Go ahead, Tim.
Jeff, long-time listener. I just want to say thanks for having me on.
Welcome, Tim.
So I'm 28 years old, and based on what I've seen since my voting, I spent 3 years in the military. Based on what I've seen in my voting experience in the past elections through the past presidencies, do you really think that Hillary will be prosecuted? I just don't believe she will be, based upon mainly actually within the last 3 years. I just don't think Congress is going to do their job. I don't think anyone's going to follow through. And I believe in the Constitution down, I'm holding it in my hand actually, it's a little pocket Constitution. In my heart, I just don't think anything is going to come about this, because it's all going to get covered up through the swamp, and it's just frustrating, I guess, too. But
Tim,
what do you think? Do you think it's going to happen?
Look, I thank you for that question, and thank you for that call. Let me give you my genuine, honest answer, like I'm in the confessional. No. Should it? Yes. If we had any kind of a serious constitutional republic, she would have been in prison so long ago, her head would have spun. But look, she's a criminal. She's a traitor. She's a criminal. And forgive me, she's a whore. That's what she is. She's a Benedict Arnold. She and her husband and that entire those criminals that were in the Obama administration. There's no getting around it. So what you're now seeing, let's be very clear about this, is that for the powerful and the rich, the politically connected, they are above the law. What is to me stunning is the hypocrisy. How they could stand there. We've got a special counsel. We've got the House Intelligence Committee investigating, the Senate Intelligence Committee investigating, the entire mainstream media up in arms, Russia, Putin, collusion. Here, Sessions is being grilled again. He's in the Senate. Al Franken, that buffoon, is asking him, did you speak to the Russian ambassador? What did you say to the Russian ambassador in November of last year? And I'm like, and you've got this going on? Hundreds of millions of dollars being wired in, yellow envelopes, money in suitcases. Everybody's turning a blind eye. Everybody's lining their pockets. $145 freaking million. Uranium being sold to the Russians. And Trump is the guy you're investigating. Look, my only hope in this is that Trump is such a straight shooter, and he's got Mueller breathing down his neck. If he wants to fire Mueller, if he wants to fire Rosenstein, he's now got all of the evidence he needs to pull the trigger and say, you're fired.
WRKO.
They've all got to be fired or they have to resign.
Immediately.
I mean, it totally compromises their integrity. I don't see any other way out.
1257 here on the great WRKO. This is from 774. You can text us at 680-680. Jeff, they'll never be made to account for their criminal conduct. The swamp encompasses just about everyone in Washington, and Trump is finding out that the swamp is much deeper and more corrupt than any of us thought. It's hopeless, Jeff. 774. Never give in to despair, because that's exactly what these gangsters want, to so demoralize and disillusion you that you just give up all hope. Remember that sunlight is the best disinfectant. Let's continue to shed a light on them, and believe me, eventually the American people will wake up, God willing. Gary in Saugus, go ahead, Gary.
Hey, Jeff, it's Gary again. I just wanted to call everyone to give everybody a reality check about Hillary Clinton. You ready?
Go, Gary.
Hillary's not going anywhere, Jeff. We're always talking about Hillary. We spent 2 years talking about Hillary on the radio, about how we were going to put Hillary in prison. We had all the goods on her. Remember, we had everything on Hillary ready to go, waiting to go. We had Trump stole everyone's idea about putting her in jail and everything, and he ran on putting her in jail. And then on one of the debates, he said she should be in prison. And we all told everyone, once again, Jeff, that he wasn't going to do anything that he said because he went to her wedding and he was her friend, and no one believed us and no one wanted to believe us, but it was true. And then when we gave him the nomination, Trump let every Trump supporter down immediately. And he said, I'm not going to prosecute her. I'm not going to be nasty like that. And not one Trump supporter was disappointed. Not one Trump supporter got aggravated. And no one said a damn thing, because whenever Trump does something that they don't like, they can't defend it, and they stay silent, Jeff. This is what I'm talking about. What do you think?
Gary, do you think if Cruz had won that he would have put Hillary in jail? I'm just curious.
Yeah, Jeff, of course Cruz would have put her in jail. He's a prosecutor, remember? He fought for us all the time. He's still fighting for us now, Jeff. And he won at least 3 out of the 5 cases he fought against the Supreme Court against by himself. And
Gary, I got to go, but thank you for that call. I'm up against a hard break. Thank you, Gary. Okay, Trump goes to war with the media over a widow of a fallen soldier. Next.
The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 93.7 WEEI HD2 Lawrence, Boston. It's 1 o'clock.